Jason Donovan was a man who had always been praised for his intelligence. Throughout school, he had excelled in nearly every subject, and his peers regarded him as a genius. He graduated from college with honors, earning a degree in engineering and quickly landing a high-paying job at a prestigious tech firm. Jason had always been told that if you worked hard enough and were smart enough, success would come. And for a long time, that seemed to be true. In the early years of his career, Jason found himself living a life of relative comfort. He had a spacious apartment in the city, drove a sleek car, and dined at expensive restaurants. His income was more than enough to cover his lifestyle, and he had little concern for his finances. After all, he was smart, and being smart meant everything would work out, didn't it? But despite his success in the workplace, there was a blind spot that Jason had never addressed: his understanding of money. He had always viewed money as something that would just keep coming, because he was good at his job. He hadn't thought about saving, investing, or planning for the future. He figured that as long as he kept doing well at work, money would always flow his way. After all, he was a highly skilled engineer in a growing field. What could go wrong? Years passed, and Jason's life continued to unfold comfortably. He moved into a bigger apartment, bought more luxury items, and took lavish vacations. He justified his spending by telling himself that he had earned it. He worked hard, and as long as his salary was high, he had nothing to worry about. But then, something happened that Jason hadn't anticipated. His company began to experience financial difficulties. At first, it was just small signs: a few rounds of layoffs, cost-cutting measures, and rumors circulating about mergers. Jason paid little attention, too confident in his abilities and too comfortable in his lifestyle to think that his job might ever be at risk. Then, one day, it happened. The company announced that it was going through restructuring, and Jason's department was among the first to be downsized. He was given a severance package, but it wasn't enough to sustain him for long. He assumed he would find another job easily. After all, he was a highly skilled engineer with a stellar resume. But as the weeks turned into months, Jason found himself caught in an increasingly competitive job market. The tech industry had changed, and his specific skills were no longer in as high demand. Companies were cutting back on hiring, and Jason's job prospects began to dwindle. The financial security that Jason had always taken for granted began to slip away. His savings, which had once seemed more than enough, were quickly depleted as he struggled to find work. His rent was due, his credit card bills piled up, and the lavish lifestyle he had grown accustomed to suddenly became unsustainable. His comfort turned into a crisis. Jason tried to hold on to his previous lifestyle, hoping that things would turn around. He dipped into his savings, sold some of his possessions, and even took out loans to cover his expenses. But it was clear that he was running out of options. The harsh reality was that Jason had no financial cushion to fall back on. He had lived paycheck to paycheck, relying on his income to cover his lifestyle, and now that income was gone. He had nothing left to protect him. For the first time in his life, Jason found himself overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. He had always been able to solve problems with his intelligence, but this was a problem that couldn't be fixed with cleverness alone. The financial crisis he faced was a result of his lack of understanding about money, his failure to plan, save, and invest. It wasn't enough to be smart, he needed to be financially literate. With no other choice, Jason began to look for answers. He reached out to financial advisors and began to read books about personal finance. He learned about the importance of saving for the future, building an emergency fund, and diversifying his investments. He was shocked to realize how much he had neglected these essential aspects of financial health. He had thought that his income would always be enough, but he now saw that wealth wasn't just about making money, it was about managing it wisely. Jason took a hard look at his past spending habits. He had spent money on things that gave him temporary pleasure but didn't contribute to his long-term security. He had bought expensive clothes, gadgets, and experiences that now seemed frivolous in the face of his financial crisis. He had been living for the moment, without any regard for the future. His luxurious lifestyle had come at the cost of his financial stability. The first lesson Jason learned was the importance of saving. He hadn't realized how crucial it was to have an emergency fund, a safety net for unexpected situations like job loss or illness. He started cutting back on unnecessary expenses, canceling subscriptions, and reducing his spending on luxuries. He focused on rebuilding his savings, little by little. Every month, he set aside a portion of what he earned from freelance work, determined to build a buffer that would protect him in case of future setbacks. The next lesson was about investing. Jason had never really thought about investing beyond his retirement account. He now understood that investing wasn't just for the wealthy, it was a way to make money work for you. He began to educate himself on different investment options, from stocks to real estate to mutual funds. He realized that by investing wisely, he could build wealth over time, even if he wasn't making a high salary. Jason also learned the importance of budgeting. For years, he had relied on his paycheck to cover everything, but now he had to be more deliberate with his money. He tracked his income and expenses, cutting out wasteful spending and prioritizing what truly mattered. He learned how to live within his means, even when it meant making sacrifices. It was a humbling experience, but it was also empowering. For the first time, Jason realized that he had control over his financial future. Despite the setbacks, Jason began to rebuild his life. He found a new job, though it paid less than his previous one. He continued working on his side projects, saving and investing as much as he could. Slowly but surely, he started to recover from the financial mess he had created. It wasn't easy, and it took time, but Jason's financial knowledge grew stronger with each lesson he learned. He learned the importance of patience and discipline, two things he had never fully appreciated before. Over the next few years, Jason's financial situation improved. His emergency fund was fully built, and he had made wise investments that began to pay off. He no longer relied on credit cards to make ends meet, and he had paid off all his debt. While he wasn't living the lavish lifestyle he once had, he felt a sense of peace and security that he had never known before. He had taken control of his finances, and he knew that he was no longer at the mercy of his income or the economy. Looking back, Jason realized how much he had learned from his mistakes. He had been so focused on his career and intellect that he had neglected the foundational principles of financial success. But through hard work, discipline, and a commitment to learning, he had turned his life around. He was no longer the man who had lived in comfort without understanding money. He was a man who had faced a crisis, learned from it, and emerged stronger. Jason's story is a powerful reminder that intelligence alone is not enough to secure financial success. Financial freedom requires understanding the principles of money, saving, budgeting, investing, and living within one's means. It requires discipline, patience, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Jason's journey shows that no matter how successful or intelligent you are, without the right financial habits, a comfortable life can quickly turn into a crisis. If you want to avoid the pitfalls that Jason fell into, take the time to educate yourself about money. Start saving today, invest wisely, and make smart financial decisions. Don't wait until it's too late to take control of your financial future. Like Jason, you can learn from your mistakes and transform your life, one smart decision at a time.